Good morning. Not a bad turnout, 9 o'clock, bright and early. Thank you very much for coming. We are here with 5 very big names from the TV industry to discuss what is happening with features television and the 8 o'clock slot in general. You're going to have lots of questions. These guys are the ones that are going to provide the answers. Thank you very much indeed for coming this morning. We have got on the panel Alison, you might want to sort of raise your hand so everyone knows who you are when we sort of announce you. We've got Alison Kirkham, who's the head of commissioning. Well, don't build up your part. We haven't got to you yet.
Sorry. Alison, the name that made me think.
We're doing well. Alison Kirkham, head of commissioning for factual features. There's not a comma there. It's factual features and formats, BBC 1 and 2. Welcome. Thank you. Katie Thorogood, who's the commissioning editor for Factual from ITV. Emma Westcott, the commissioning editor for news, current affairs and documentaries. They obviously do quite a lot of multitasking at Channel 5. Jill Wilson, head of features from Channel 4. And Celia Taylor, who was the head of Factual at Sky, but is now the head of all non-scripted commissioning at Sky. So you will not get a better panel anywhere at the television festival this weekend, I guarantee you that. And
oh, you know how to butter us up, don't you?
And I'm very pleased that you're all here. We're going to start with a little clip because you need a little bit of waking up. And as you watch this clip, which we'll play in a second, see if you can identify the features programmes past and present that make it up. So if we can just roll the introductory VT, that would be great. Thank you. There you are, the future features, 8 o'clock and beyond. Some old chestnuts there. Who spotted Two Fat Ladies, Holiday, Changing Rooms, Ground Force, What Not to Wear, How Clean Is Your House, and the new crop of features and 8 o'clock shows, which of course includes the Bake Off, the Zoo, easy to spot that one because it said the Zoo, and there was a big lion, Philip Glenister and the Car Show, the Super Vet, Don Porter, George Clark. So an increased range of programming at 8 o'clock, and it's fair to say slightly more patchy performance as well. So the 5 people on this panel, with your help, are strategizing how to make 8 o'clock work and continue connecting with audiences. Jill from Channel 4, you're the only one.
I'll put my hand up now as well.
You did.
Okay.
Jill Wilson, head of features, Channel 4. You're the only person on this panel whose job is actually head of features. Everyone else has sort of, masked it a bit with, factual features, commissioning editor this, head of this, that, and this, that, and the next thing. But you are unashamedly the head of features. What do you think is going on in general terms with the 8 o'clock slot, and how would you characterise how it's been changing as evidenced by that VT?
It's really interesting when you look at the VT and you look at actually how the territories don't change, the treatment of the territories change. Because we've come to a point where we've had to move on. I arrived at Channel 4 2 years ago, and we were very aware then that the traditional beats of the features territory we had to wrestle with because people weren't connecting with them so much anymore. And so I think people had got very tired of being, probably due to the austerity that we were going through. When times are good, you can kind of take Gillian McKeith telling you not to eat that or your poo is going to be revolting. I think when times are harder, people don't want to have fingers wagged at them and they don't want the heavy hands.
When is somebody's poo not revolting, incidentally?
Well, according to Gillian McKeith, there are varying levels.
Has she ever said, that's an amazing poo, that's such a good one?
Has she? Yeah, I'm sure.
There's nothing to fix.
Let's not start this way. It's only 9:05. Let's move on. So I think that actually people have got to the point where they are over the heavy hand of the producer. They're looking for a more authentic experience, and they're looking for their features to be given to them with less of a wagging finger, less of a didactic, you must do this, and more of a show me and inspire me way to go about looking at those territories. People aren't bored of having contemporary life reflected back at them. They just want it, the viewer wants it evolved in a different way, which doesn't feel, Schadenfreude has had its day in terms of features. People are wanting to be shown, not told, what it is that their contemporary life should be reflecting.
Oh my God.
Come on, thank you.
That was brilliant.
Yeah. I'm doing 2 rooms, that's multitasking, just saying.
You heard it here first. Schadenfreude has had its day. Very quotable. Do you all agree? I mean, the points there, they seem They seem logical, you know, authenticity, you know, less of the kind of pantomime presenters. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, things go in and out of fashion, don't they? And I think authenticity has been the buzzword for the last few years. But actually, what connects all those shows are big characters, big warm presenters with opinions and wit. I think what's harder is when you look back on the heyday of what not to eat, how to look good naked, what not to wear. They were such simple ideas, completely captured in the title. And I think we'd all still love one of those. But they're hard, aren't they? They're really hard. I mean, what not to wear was just a really clever idea. And the best of those shows are always not about the subject. They're always about something broader. So they're always about confidence rather than fashion.
When fashion gets mature, you get super brands. So, you know, Gokwan made it very hard for anybody to do the kind of what is going on next door? You should all go there. It sounds much more interesting.
you're all on fire this morning. It's just amazing.
I think everything became very predictable, and I think it was once you had a few killer brands, and I think, you know, Bake Off is sort of one of those brands. It's hard for anybody to innovate in that territory. So it kind of, it's brilliant when you have the super brands, but it does bring a stultifying effect across the genre, I think. So it's like anything, when it gets to its maturity, you have these big, fat, ripe fruit hanging on the tree, and they're great, and everybody wants them, but after a while, they need to fall off the tree, and we need to innovate and regenerate, and I think that's what we're trying to do now.
Well, sitting next to you is Emma Westcott, who, of course, is now at Channel 5, but when you were at Channel 4, you, along with Ben Frow, were responsible for the creation of a great many of those
And they weren't
super
easy.
brands.
It wasn't easy, actually. I think it was really easy to make them badly.
It's the hardest television to make, I think.
We were very lucky, and I think it was about an authenticity then, a craving for information. I think now that you get it from the internet, you don't need someone telling you what to do. But then, you know, I mean, it's not that long ago, really. And I think what we probably haven't done, although actually interesting seeing that tape, I couldn't really tell the difference between then and now, is it was just new talent, actually. That's the only thing, and I think that's where, you know, maybe, you know, we haven't reinvented, because as Jill says, it's the same old subjects, the same old territories, which are just reflected back at us, and it's just a new way of doing it.
And I think that point about information is quite an important one. It used to be enough just to offer people information, but they can get it so many other ways now, and sort of everyone's an expert in everything. You know, you can research everything. So I don't think it's sufficient just to tell people how to dress better or how to be more healthy. I do think you've got to offer more sophistication and layers within the shows.
Good. Layers is a theme we will come to shortly. Everyone's brought a clip. Now, there's been some debate about what the purpose of the clip is, whether it's to point out something that's working now or to give a glimpse of the future. But I think we'll go through one at a time and play them and have a little discussion about what the team here on the panel think they represent. And first up is Jill's clip, which is from, no, is this show's not been out yet?
No, in fact, it hasn't been announced yet, so I just thought we'd give a little sneak preview this morning.
Yeah.
Would you like to show the clip? Would you like me to talk about the clip? How do you want to do it, Simon?
Give us a little sense of what it is, and then we'll play it.
Okay, but you know, it's a big surge forward. I'm getting there. So the autistic gardener is a guy called Alan Gardner. His name is actually A. Gardner, which is ridiculous, and it's called nominative determination, which is a phrase I never thought I'd say 10 past 9 in front of a group this big. So Alan Gardner he has Asperger's syndrome, and he has a strong belief that people who are on the autistic spectrum have amazing talent in the world of gardening, because a lot of the autistic traits lend themselves naturally towards the skills which are most important in the world of gardening. And so we at Channel 4 at the moment are looking at doing a lot of peer-to-peer information giving, because Alison's absolutely right. It's no longer enough for an expert to tell you what you probably already know. There needs to be an experience that comes along with it, which is giving you a broader sense of what's happening in society at the moment and a broader sense of what you might find interesting. And so for us, the option which Betty gave us to look at gardening, which we hadn't looked at for Channel 4 for a very long time, but to do it through a prism of something which is so inherently interesting, and to look at those skills that are required through gardening through such a very, very unique and interesting prism, was too good to resist. So Alan is going to take a team of young autists who have either a current interest and passion for gardening, which is going to give the viewer a very interesting and different way in than the traditional gardening shows, and put them into real clients' gardens to give them what should be the Carlsberg of gardens. You cannot get this better anywhere else. So have a look at Alan, who does not look like Alan Titchmarsh. Have a quick look. And that's actually the taster tape that we haven't, that we thought we would bring that along because it is the rawest state of what we have at the moment. So that's Alan's taster, but they're in full production at the moment.
So there he is, Mr. A. Gardner, who is a gardener.
He is a gardener.
With his pink hair and his nails. So what are your hopes for that? Because one area of concern for everyone in the features game, I suspect, has been the inconsistency of ratings performance at 8 o'clock over the last couple of years. It's a bit better this year than last, but nowhere near the peaks of the golden era, if you like. So what does a show like this represent in terms of your ratings hopes? Because at one point the changing rooms and the what not to wears were doing 5, 6, 7 million. Does this feel like it could be on a par with that, or have we left those days behind and entered a new era?
I genuinely am not looking for 7 million viewers for that show. I don't honestly think that's realistic. I mean, join on in, the water's warm, but I don't think 7 million is very realistic. I think that we are looking for that show. It's a very traditional features space, actually. So what I'm hoping for is to bring 16 to 34s to that space, because that's the demographic I am charged with getting. So, it's really interesting how features does do well across all of the channels. So I know that gardening is a space that Katie occupies very, very successfully with Love Your Garden, which is a show that I love. But obviously her viewers aren't my viewers. So in terms of ratings, it is the 16 to 34 in the ABC One demographic that I am after, who I very much hope will come to that show.
And in terms of sort of bums on seats, what do you think it might do?
God, has anyone seen my crystal ball? Because I just can't find it right now. In terms of what it might do.
Put a figure on it, like 1.5, 2.5, or 3.5?
Somewhere between there. Somewhere between those numbers.
So if it did between 1 and 1.5, you'd be happy as long as it was a young audience?
Simon, I haven't got the schedule in front of me. Is it against Bake Off? Because if it is, then it's probably going to do less. I don't know. So it depends on a number of factors that I cannot determine. But yes, between 1.5 and 2.5 would be very nice. Thank you.
All right, good. And it's going to be called The Autistic Gardener. When can we see it?
It's a working title, The Autistic Gardener, and it should be on air by May. Plant dependent.
Plant dependent.
It's plant dependent.
All right, super duper. So moving on to Alison's clip. Alison, you have chosen a clip which has also got a gardening flavour, so there's a bit of a theme emerging here. Do you want to just give us a little heads up on what it is and why you've chosen it?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting when this panel was being put together, the people who were producing it came to talk to me and they said, can you give us an example of a classic features show that you do? And I thought about it, and it struck me that probably we don't do that many classic, single narrative lifestyle type programs anymore. And in some ways that was a conscious decision, because I think that's quite a narrow interpretation of features, and I think there are declining rewards for that. So while I've been at the department, we've tried to sort of push out a little bit and borrow from other genres like docs or entertainment or specialist factual. And I thought that this clip, because I think that the viewers do respond to that. If you offer a bit more complexity or information, sophistication in the approach, for us that's worked, certainly. And I thought that this was an example of that. So it's a gardening show, and I think the real joy of this area of television is that we are given permission to take the things people really care about in their everyday lives, whether it's food or gardening or relationships or how they feel about themselves, and really revere those things and treat them with importance. So it's a gardening show, and that's a pastime that people love in this country, but what we've tried to do is marry it with some specialist factual content. So Raymond Blanc it's a new show, it's not been on yet. Raymond Blanc is working with Kew Gardens, and he's re-establishing an historic cottage garden, which will remain after the show has aired. And we're using that project to look at the sort of fruit and vegetables that we eat every day and tell the sort of who do you think that you are stories of their origins.
So here it is. Who do you think you are? Rhubarb. Let's roll the clip. Very good. You will never actually see a room full of adults getting more excited over a plate of peas. It was when she said, it tastes like peas. It's like opening a pea pod. Because that's just what we've done. We've just opened peas. I know, but they're lovely peas. They're very different clips, both in the gardening space. Yeah. One sort of edgy, spiky, iconoclastic, highly individualistic person who's going to do a thing with other people who've got the same condition as him, and the other, Kate Humble, on a train with peas and Raymond and stuff. It brings to mind the research that has been done recently to look at what mood state, terrible expression, but what mood state people are in at 8 o'clock when they sit down to watch television. The BBC clip is clearly more sort of warm bathy in the sense that you can sort of luxuriate in the photography and the smell of the food and the cooking going on, and it's all very kind of high definition-y, and not that the foreshow won't be beautifully shot, etc., but he's clearly a more edgy, challenging, unusual individual that some people may not want to spend a huge amount of time in the company of. So how much attention do you guys pay to the way people feel? This is a question for the others who haven't said anything for a bit. Maybe Emma, you can talk about. So you're zoning out. I know. I've been trying working up to a question. Working up to a question at some point. But when people sit down at 8 o'clock to watch television, are you trying to work out what it is that they're going to want to feel at that time?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a mood thing, you know, if you think, I mean, London's a slight exception, but, I mean, the rest of the country has, you know, they've had the tea, they put the kids, you know, the kids are sort of either milling around or gone to bed, and although they're not ready to sit down and watch a narrative, you know, long, involving documentary, although I think that's actually not true now, it has to have a sort of lightness of touch or a reason, you know, I mean, Channel 5 is quite different from the other channels in terms of, I mean, we don't really do features, you know, and I actually am quite...
What does that mean, we don't really do features?
Well, I didn't know what features was. I mean, Ben thinks it's a nonsense word, actually. So, you know, it's sort of banned.
Ben thinks features is a nonsense word. I'll just unpack that for us a bit, because I don't know what you guys think, but, you know, if I was a producer trying to pitch features ideas to, you know, the features commissioners, and then they came here and said we don't do features, I'd be feeling a bit confused. So
no, I think
what does it actually mean?
Well, I think features was a made-up word from, I don't know, probably Mark Thompson era at the BBC, I don't know. And I think for us it was about, you know, I mean, let's face it, I think the documentary people have stolen kind of features clothes, if you're thinking about that, really. I think, you know, you probably particularly, you know, looking at the ratings that Ben and I were getting, thought, oh, actually, maybe rather than doing, you know, obscure, niche, you know, clever documentaries, let's look at these traditional territories which are really important in viewers' lives. And the thing is, I think it's always about the viewer. And, you know, Danny Cohen commissioned Super Nanny. It couldn't be a more features-y type show. But we were doing things like Jamie's Kitchen and No Going Back. So I think everybody gets stuck into this, oh, it has to be an expert and going in and telling people what to do. I think there's a transformation, but then there's a transformation in any show that you would do, I suspect. And I think for us on Channel 5, it's about, you know, we're the small channel, you know, we've got to find a little niche. We don't have the wonderful permission that, you know, Alison has to do a gorgeous piece of, you know, television like that thing. We don't have, you know, Jill's kind of, I've got to do something, you know, be risky, do something incredibly. So, you know, that's why our success has been things like, you know, Extreme Neighbour, you know, Nightmare Neighbours, you know, looking at stuff that we've all, you know, it's not new, but actually it's just the right timing, and, you know, it's doing well for us, that kind of stuff.
What would you call Linda Barker then?
Oh, right.
Features?
No, ahead of its time. So, I tell you why, you know, there was a really sort of, strategic. I mean, the thing about Channel 5, we can try things like that and we're sort of slightly less exposed. But I think we were kind of looking at thinking, you know, is Property dead on Channel 4? You know, it's kind of, you know, I was always thinking it's kind of coming to its end. And it's all cyclical. You know, we saw it at Changing Rooms on the BBC. We then took it on with Location. And, you know, you're kind of thinking, but actually, we all live in our houses. You know, Nightmare Neighbours had done really well. We were thinking, do you know what, people are still doing up their houses. Let's do it. I mean, I'm really disappointed it didn't work that well. I think that, you know, maybe a year or two's time, it might be the right time to do really cheap makeover things.
But we have had Fill Your House for Free that did 2.3 million, and so it's, you know, that kind of very good and very cheap kind of programming is still what people want reflecting back at them.
I'm not on Channel 5.
Okay, not
I
on
think
Channel
that's-
5,
I think
but then
that's
you
the
do
thing.
still have the hotel inspectors, and you do still, you know, Ben is, you know, Ben is, he has said, has given the features is a nonsense, which considering he does that, Ben and I co-conceived Snog, Marry, Avoid, so I will not speak ill of the father of my favourite child, but he is quite naughty to kind of say features is a dirty word because because
I think it's what does features mean.
Yes.
So, and I think it doesn't really.
I mean,
you know,
there's clearly something wrong with features because they're not working.
But
What
I
do you
don't
mean?
think that's true. I don't think that's true,
Well, I
Celia,
think
because
Well, let's just
there is. I mean, I
unpack
think-
that. What does that actually mean?
Well, I think there needs to be change. I think the audiences are declining because they've got bored with what they're seeing. It's too predictable. It's the same. And I just think and I think the conversation should be about this is an amazing time for innovation, and it's an amazing time of creativity, and for the indies it's an amazing opportunity to really reinvigorate that 8 o'clock slot. So I don't really want to sit here and kind of argue about whether the feature's dead or not, because that just sounds like TV nonsense, commissioner speak. What we should be talking about is 8 o'clock is a significant slot in any channel. It's the bridge to the big expensive shows at 9 o'clock. So if you have to make 8 o'clock work in order to make the whole evening, so it's a really critical slot. So actually it is an amazing time for features, or 8 o'clock, or whatever label you want to use. And I think it's a real opportunity for innovation. And I think that's part of the fun of now. And I think in a way, I kind of like moments in television when the cycle slightly comes to the end, because actually you can actually start to people going, oh, please don't pitch me another show like that. You know, another expert walking up the garden path and telling me how to do stuff. So I think it's a great time for features.
I don't think that 8 o'clock is not working across the board. I mean, you know, we've had a lot of successful, you know, Sewing Bee, the House That 100K built, The Fixer, you know, Bake Off's obviously just moved to one.
Not
so
everybody. I mean,
lots
BBC too have had, you know, and you've got said some killer brands, but I think
Let's do a quick show of hands in the room.
I mean, obviously, let's
quick show of hands in the room. Do we stick your hand up if you think that the overall quality and connection with the audience of 8 p.m. feature shows is as good now as it always was? Nobody.
Yeah. We'll get on coach, shall we, girls? I think.
Stick your hand up if you think that the programme titles and their impact and their performance was more successful in the recent past than it is now. All right, well, there is an issue here. I mean, you know, we can argue it backwards and forwards, but these are the guys that matter. Listen, you've raised an interesting point, Celia, which leads nicely into your clip, which
I'm really
of all the
glad I didn't
clips
bring
is...
a gardening clip, because we too are doing
you have a gardening
show on Sky One, but yeah, I'm glad we didn't bring a gardening clip. But interestingly, our gardening show doesn't have any presenters on it. It is actually proper peer-to-peer, so it doesn't have somebody telling you what to do or somebody doing pieces to camera. So hopefully it will feel like a very
So what is that then?
show.
I mean, would you just call that a documentary then?
No, it is a
Is
format.
peer-to-peer presenting just watching people doing stuff? Is it people gardening?
Well, it is a format, but the instruction comes from people sharing their knowledge with each other. So
Why are we so afraid of presenters conveying information? I mean, after all...
I'm not particularly, but I just think that so what I'm talking about, trying to innovate within the genre, then that's one way of doing it. And the traditional way of doing it is finding a talent, and either it's Kate Humble everybody loves, or it's somebody new with pink hair who stands out. So those are the very traditional ways of approaching it. So I suppose what we're, Sky in the same way, you know, people are very used to going to BBC Two or Channel 4 at 8 o'clock. That's the sort of default position. So I think you get a lot of viewers just because that's, you know, if you're ready to sit down and watch television, you're probably in the mood for something light, then that's probably the most obvious place to go. So for us to try and compete with them, we have to do things differently. And
we
if
have
we
a
try
clip
and
now.
emulate them, it just doesn't work.
We have a clip now, which I'll do a quick intro for, which is from a programme called, and to correct me if I've got this wrong, 50 Ways to Kill Your Mammy.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep.
That doesn't sound like a traditional
It's not. There's
8 o'clock
nothing.
features
It's
programme.
absolutely not a traditional programme at all. And I think, as going back to, you know, Sky, we live in, you know, imagine if you live in a world of free chocolate, you know, and Cadbury's is BBC Two and Channel 4, then, you know, how are we going to get people to come to us? So we're not
What
going
chocolate
to do,
bar would you be? I mean,
well,
would
exactly.
you be Ferrero Rocher?
Would you
or
even bother being a chocolate bar? You know, what's the point when you've got free Cadbury? So we really have to have a point of differentiation. We really have to have shows that feel incredibly original, that have real heart and emotion, that are funny, and that basically stimulate emotion. And hopefully this programme will.
All right, should we roll
It
the tape?
speaks for itself. Thank you, thank you.
Interesting.
I love this show. I so love the show. And Clive and Nikki who made it, Burning Bright are here today.
Who made it, sorry?
Burning Bright, Clive Tullow and Nikki and Baz as well. So we absolutely love this show. It's so
How did
joyous.
it come about? I mean, did somebody sit down and say what would happen if we tried to do Mrs.
really
Brown's
liked-
Boys meet City abroad? And
We really
out
liked
it popped, or-
Baz. So we really like Baz. He's Irish talent, but never done anything in the UK. And so we just really liked him. So we kept talking, and then one day he just came in with that. And we just went, that's perfect for us, for Sky One. It's really joyous, it's really uplifting, it's incredibly inspirational, and it's very funny, and it's very surprising. And I think those are all things that we have to be on Sky One.
Thank you, guys. Whoever wants to chip in, would any of you have gone for that? I mean, you've not seen that clip before, presumably. Say someone had walked in with it as a taster and said, hey, I've got this new thing. Baz, he's Irish, there's a mum, there's stunts. Do you want it? What would you be saying?
Yeah.
I would have loved
Yeah.
it.
You'd all have taken that?
Yeah.
You're pulling a face.
No, I'm just thinking about it on
Sorry,
Channel
that
5.
didn't mean to sound rude, but
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
maybe you would just... you're not allowed to do that. You can't do that.
I think it's hilarious. I've seen the trailers for it, and I think it is absolutely brilliant. And what I love about that is that I think features, however we're defining it, does get a bit po-faced, and it's quite nice to have funny.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I know we've got Bake Off has got the sort of joy and celebration in it. And so I think, would it work on Channel 5? I'm not sure. I think it's probably a bit quirky for us at the moment. And I think as a way to start reinventing travel, you know, that's brilliant.
I think it's,
you know.
I mean, it's funny whenever we show it, we kind of get that response. I'm just pleased that the audience feel the same. But
When's
I
it
think
start going
actually when does it start?
Yeah.
25th, Monday 25th.
So very soon.
Sailed,
Yeah, it's being trialled at the moment. But I think actually it's
Coinciding with
incredibly
Edinburgh, almost as if by magic.
Yes, it's incredibly mainstream, I think, because everybody responds to it. You know, most of us have a relationship with our mothers that we love our mothers, but they also drive us mental. So I think it taps into that. I think kids will love it because they see a grandma doing incredible things. I mean, I think there was only 4 things she didn't do on the whole trip. And incidentally, while we were in production on that, we actually called it 50 Ways to Test Your Mammy, just in case we did kill her. We were like,
Did she need a lot of persuasion, or was she just completely up for it?
She was up for it. There were a few things that she absolutely refused to do, but that's all played out on camera. So it is shot in a kind of documentary way, although obviously, you know. But she did do the skydiver, which is extraordinary, and she was amazing. And Baz was the whimpering jelly and totally pathetic. So, but it is incredibly inspirational because I think it does give you, when you watch that, you do feel like you should do something with your life. And I think that's, you know, I think features traditionally have been quite passive. It's about sitting down and receiving, and I think this show is exactly the opposite of that.
You created with Idiot Abroad an absolute phenomenon with Carl Pilkington, and the ratings for that show were far in excess of what Sky would normally get. And with a programme like this, would you be hoping to climb up to those lofty heights in terms of figures?
I mean, you know, it's very hard. It's completely unknown talent. It's an unknown format.
It's quite hard for you to break through, isn't it, with any kind of factual on Sky?
So I think, you know, the way that we can break through is with originality and with courage and with something that we feel incredibly passionate about, rather than yet another gardening show or yet another cooking
Alison,
show.
sorry,
You are
interrupted
doing
you.
yet another gardening show.
Yeah, we are, because I mean, I think the other thing on Sky One, it does sound really odd for us to be doing a gardening show, but we are very specifically after a particular audience for that.
Which is?
But there's a lot of people who own Sky in their homes who don't watch the channels, they watch the news and the movies, they don't watch the entertainment channels that much. And they tend to be the slightly older upmarket, sort of Freeview type audience. So we've commissioned specifically a few shows into that audience. So gardening, and also we've got a show with Freddie Flintoff called Lord of the Fries, where he's driving around Britain in a fish and chip van. And those shows are very specifically targeted at getting that older audience, because we know they like gardening, we know they like Britain, we know they like the outdoors. So those shows are very specifically aimed at getting those people, because those people like drama. So if we can get them in at 8, they'll watch our dramas at 9. So it is a very strategic approach. So that's why we're doing a gardening show. I mean, it does sound odd for us to be doing it, but that's why.
All right, good. Alison?
You talked about mood at 8 o'clock, and I think one of the things we're all, one of the shifts that's happening is that the funny is important and the emotional is important. So we recently did Under Offer estate agents, the estate agent stock format. And one of the things people really responded to was that it made them laugh. And similarly, some of our biggest brands like Long Lost Family or DIY SOS make people cry. And I do think there's a real imperative to get shows that touch you emotionally as well as tell you stuff. And it makes a huge difference when you're developing these formats.
I think also, I mean, what you don't get from the internet is inspiration. And I think, you know, a lot of people sit and watch MasterChef with a bowl of spaghetti bolognese thinking, I'm not doing it now, but I could do it. And it's the same with Amazing Spaces, which has been a massive success for us, which is George isn't telling you what to do. He does go and build a caravan, but he's not telling you what to do. And our talent there is really important in terms of being a conduit into what people are inspired to do, but is achievable for them. So if you look at, I mean, Amazing Spaces was a massive hit for us. Amazing Spaces Shed of the Year, which is my favourite show of all time, because what is not to like about sheds? I don't get it. So in those
I like
terms,
Peter Fincham's shed. Did you
Peter
see that?
Fincham's shed is nicer than my house. It just upset me, that whole thing.
Has anyone in the room been in Peter Fincham's shed? Have your hands up if you've been in his
I've
shed?
been in Peter Fincham's shed.
Really?
You work for it. That is a story.
Let's just talk about
There were
that.
loads of other people who would say that's how it was done.
Is that a metaphor? I've been in Peter Fincham's shed.
But no, I do think that, to the serious point is, people want achievable aspiration, and they don't necessarily want to be told this is how you must do it. They want to be shown, you know, obviously in Alison's very beautiful gardening show, it is from kitchen to plate, and that is a beautiful way of doing it, to say, you know, you can be inspired to do that. You all have a garden, you all have a kitchen.
Jill, you've just launched a stack of commissions, again, mysteriously to coincide with the Edinburgh Television Festival.
It's uncanny.
It's uncanny the way commissioners announce these things at Edinburgh. To what extent does your new crop of commissions speak to that theme?
Well, it's interesting because actually a lot of the new commissions that we've actually announced recently have been property, and it's something that we at Channel 4 just remain very passionate about, because it does still hit the viewers. Everyone's, you know, people are massively passionate about their homes, both their interiors. It was Interior Style Challenge on BBC Two, I thought was absolutely great, that played at 7 o'clock, and I think does really reflect what we're doing. We've commissioned 15 new titles for next year. In the time we have been at
Give us a
Channel
couple
4,
of titles.
we've got Clicks and Mortar with Sarah Beanie, which is about, it's, you know, it's everything reflects. Is there a new insight into the way that we are living? And it's about people selling their own houses online, which of course Sarah's very into. And it's phenomenal, the amount of money that you can save, but it's looking at that kind of juxtaposition between, will I absolutely fundamentally get it wrong and lose myself loads of money, or actually is there 20 grand to be saved by doing this? And that it's kind of the old property ladder. Sarah's probably giving you some very good advice. Whether or not you're going to take it is very different. We've got a beautiful piece coming up called Inside Out Homes, which is a brand new architect called Zach Monroe, who's going to really give that very inspirational look at how you can take the inside of your home outside. Again, it's another way of looking at doing gardening.
And what's the shut-ins?
The shut-ins is interesting because, you know, we're talking about the evolution of the form, which is, you once had Gillian McKeith telling you, don't eat that, it's going to be really bad for your poo. Sorry, I keep going back there, don't know why. Then you've moved into the super size, super skinny world. And the evolution of that, which is slightly what we're all trying to do, which is look at that hybrid in form between traditional features, beats and documentary. And the shut-ins is still an American term, but it's for people who are now so obese they can't leave their home. These are the super obese who cannot leave their home. And we're
So it's a working title, the shut-ins?
No, I very much think that's what it will be called, because of course, as everything comes from
Wouldn't you
America...
call that too fat to leave the house?
Yeah.
In order to let people know what it was?
Well, as I say, it's a working title, but actually, if you
You
are
just said it
shut
wasn't
in-
a working title.
That's what Channel 5 would call it.
Yeah, we call it fatties. You're trapped.
What would you... Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay, we'll do that then.
Right,
What she just said,
now,
that's
come
what
on,
we'll do.
ladies. We got it. Enough talk
That's
of Fincham's
unemployed
shed.
fatties trapped.
Right, we've got 2 more clips to go, and we got 15 minutes. We've got some questions to take, so we're going to have to hustle. But very quickly, without thinking about it too much, Channel 4 are calling that show the Shut-Ins. What are Sky calling it?
What? Fatties trapped?
Yeah.
Fatty Strapped.
No, we wouldn't call it. We'd
What would you call it?
We'd call it, I don't know, free your life or something very positive and up, and you know.
Sounds good. I'll be watching that. Emma?
Fatties trapped.
Fatty's Trapped.
Something like too fat to leave the house.
Too fat to leave the house.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Too fat to leave the house?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Okay, providing an important.
Brainstorm out the rad, by the way. This is totally working for me.
Providing a very important public service here. Okay, 2 more clips from Channel 5 first, and then ITV. Katie, who's been listening very patiently to all of this, and let's start with Emma's clip, which is indicating what she thinks the future of features on Channel 5 is.
Because I didn't realise it was 8 o'clock we were talking about. So
everyone's saying, "Oh, I'm on a panel. Yeah. I'm on a panel." I didn't realise what it was about.
No. Because actually, as Jill reminded me yesterday,
the producer tricked me.
Jill reminded me yesterday. Actually, the clip I should have is of Alan Davis doing doggy rescuers. Because actually,
that would have been brilliant.
It was a good illustration.
What have you actually brought?
For another specific reason, Hotel Inspector, because it's about talent. And I think it was the reason I chose it was because. I think we're very wedded to our existing talent, and actually I think she was the exception. She proved the fact that you don't need to be. That when Ruth Watson defected to Channel 4, 2-4, then found Alex, put her on, and she did better. So I think it was a lesson to
have a look.
Us all, that we shouldn't worry.
Ooh, intense. That looks a bit old-fashioned, doesn't it?
Actually, we sort of ripped up the format a bit. So I think, again, we've just, the only format is dodgy hotels and Alex, do what you like. And actually, we've always been sort of hoping that one day she will walk out.
That's sort of quite familiar argy-bargy, isn't it? It's like an argument, single camera argument, argue. I mean, is it? I
thought it was quite good.
No, it's very watchable. But but what about everything you were saying earlier?
Yeah.
Everyone was saying about the aspirational, and it's not all about big fights anymore. It's sort of warm and inclusive.
But
that's not warm and inclusive,
isn't there? I mean,
you can still enjoy that.
At the end, they come round and they all love each other. And
oh, what a surprise!
I know, but it's a format that's been around a long time. Yeah. So, it is a very successful format, and it has been.
So, is that a feature show?
By definition, if we're saying it's an expert going in and doing something, I think yes. I think that it's not an 8 o'clock Channel 5 show. I think the 8 o'clock Channel 5 shows are more topical tabloids. Alan Davis doing the dog rescuers. I think Greg Barnett did a great job by taking a very small ob doc, which sort of did okay, nothing particularly special, and then said, actually, just before it was about to go out, should we put Alan Davis in it? And put 500,000 viewers on it. So
it's a Paulo Grady trick.
It is, exactly. It's, and actually really that's what Channel 5 needs, because we don't have any marketing, anything that can draw a bit of attention.
So we're seeing a bit of a shift from the presenter down the barrel of the lens, telling you stuff and indicating how things should be done, to presenters / talent who are involved in the ongoing story. And Katie's clip, which we should get onto now, also speaks to that, doesn't it, Katie? Do you want to just give us a sense of why you chose this?
Yeah, we're in quite a different landscape. I don't think we particularly think about features. We really think about pre and post watershed, I think, at ITV. And pre-watershed, we are around soaps. So we are fitting in around Coronation Streets. And in terms of a mood state, if you're in between 2 Coronation Streets and up against EastEnders, you need to think what feels right there, because that audience tends to be a bit older. Like Celia was saying, that is out and about. It tends not to be life stage stuff like property or fashion or cooking. That's all a bit chattering classes for us. So it is out and about. It is escapism. It is warm. I think one of the things that everyone's talking about is just making these things entertaining and funny and witty. So I guess this is Warwick Davis and his family, and they go travelling around Britain. I guess it's sort of, it used to be what it would have been an old-fashioned holiday show that said you can stay in this bed and breakfast for £79, but you don't need that anymore. And actually what you need is...
Not when you've got a dwarf family putting up a tent.
You just need a bit of fun and some warm companionship.
Didn't mean to be rude there or anything. But let's have a look. This is Warwick. In this scene, Warwick and family
are camping.
Camping. I'm thinking they dubbed on that thunder at the end. I mean, it's a sunny day.
You're saying we faked the thunder?
I'm saying you faked the thunder. Celia, you probably have done that, wouldn't you? Because he's been talent for you.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it's very sweet.
You like that?
It's very, very sweet, yeah. It might be a bit quiet for us.
A bit quiet? What does quiet mean? That's a word you hear quite a lot, the Commissioner's using.
gentle, not enough, not noisy enough, not big enough characters. I mean, they're lovely, and I think the family thing is obviously critical. Yeah. Sorry, who laughed at that? That wasn't even a deliberate joke. Family is obviously...
Celia Taylor in Dwarf Row at Edinburgh.
I'm only 5'1" myself,
British Achondroplasia Society, up in arms.
Where was I? Oh yeah, family. So Sky One Family is heartland for everything that we do on the channel, which is one of the reasons why that clip, I think, works, because it's about multi-generational relationship. So the family thing of that would really, really work. And I think out and about in Britain, it's your moment, you should be talking. So we've got Freddie Flintoff doing a similar sort of thing, but it's much more...
he's in a chip van.
He's in a... Freddie Flintoff's a big...
Why would he do that, incidentally? I mean, why would he go around Britain in a chip van?
Because he is a huge fish and chip fan.
Why doesn't he just go and buy some fish and chips?
No, he actually wants to start a business. He wants to start a fish and chip business.
Really?
Yes. And we talked about
hands up if you believe that Freddie Flintoff wants to start a fish and chip business. Yeah,
but
okay.
You can, if you Google it, there's loads of press that he's said that X years ago.
So he's going. Okay, all right. So it's like he's trying to learn about how to do it. So it's a real thing.
No, it's more. Yes, it's like an R&D trip around Britain, but he's going with another guy called Rob Penn, and so it's like a boys' trip. It's like a dream boys' trip. They get away from the wives, they're in the van, they go off and they do boysy things, but they also have this fish and chip van. So it's a documentary, but it's kind of like a road trip. So it's very funny.
Echoes of Charlie Borman and Ewan McGregor on their bikes, perhaps, but reinvented for 2015. Well, look, we are nearing the end of the session. 5 extremely revealing clips, all very different and very, very unguarded and candid answers to all the questions from this fantastic panel. You must have a couple of questions. Please identify yourself to the people with the microphone. Tell us who you are. Ask away. Lady in the side over there.
Thank you. Good morning. My name's Julie Craig. I run Tay Screen. We've been with the Screen Commission for one of the Screen Commissions in Scotland. We've been helping with Freddie Flintoff. We've been helping with the estate agents. We've helped with MasterChef, the professionals. So we've been delighted that you guys have been sending the cameras up to our area. But I was just wondering on the kind of the businessy space, because obviously you've got programs where somebody goes into a hotel and tries to get them sorted out and so on. When it's things like, say, The Apprentice, do you think there's any scope for sort of more businessy programs for any of your channels?
I'd love more if we could innovate in terms of form. I mean, Dragon's Den, Apprentice felt very fresh, Dragon's Den felt very fresh. I mean, the biggest thing for us at the moment is how can we take these familiar territories and offer a different approach? So
what doesn't work anymore, I think, unless you find an extraordinary character, is somebody going in and turning a business around, because we've just seen it so many times.
Yeah.
And for us with business, we would need a format as big as The Apprentice, but The Apprentice casts such a long shadow.
Next question. Oh, you must have one.
It's really early.
Yeah, this lady here.
Lady near the front. Thank you for putting your hand up.
That's all right. I haven't quite worked out the question.
That's all right. I've been doing that for an hour.
Hi, I'm Sarah Lazenby from Nerd TV. I just wanted to pick up on what you're saying about it's a change, it's an end of a cycle, and I wanted to talk to you about talent. I've done a lot of features stuff in time, F-word, back in the old days sort of stuff. Now find myself at Nerd, we're a smaller company. We don't necessarily have those relationships with the big giants, with the Jamies, with the Gordons, with the Dawns. How important is talent to you? I can see that, Katie, you're borrowing from entertainment, I guess, with the Warwick-type character. Celia, you've got Baz, who is known on Irish TV, but not over here. How important is that to you for kind of the ratings point of view? Because obviously someone like us, we could have possibly brought you something like this old thing, but possibly not attached Dawn to it.
Yeah.
So
you definitely could have brought us the autistic gardener.
Yes.
And you definitely could have brought us Dave Fishwick. You could have brought us Katie Piper.
Yeah.
You could have brought us Philip Glenister, who's come over from The Love of Cars. It's not necessarily about those relationships with existing big talent. It's about thinking laterally about what kind of passion is going to connect with the audience and what's going to feel authentic there. So, of course, on Channel 4, I was always very jealous of our talent roster as an independent producer, and I'm equally as proud of it now. But we are also, as has been discussed across the panel, looking for peer-to-peer information giving. And so the talent, you don't always have to think of it literally in terms of what talent already exists, you can absolutely look laterally. I mean, Philip Glenister was a massive, massive car fan, and we went, he absolutely fits with our brand, and came over. And so I don't think you necessarily have to think in terms of who can I get who feels out of reach to me. It's about thinking laterally around that space.
But also, I think it's about approach with the idea. So we wanted to get into property for a long time. Channel 4 cast a really big shadow. And over the past year, we launched 3 property shows: the House That 100K Built, Estate Agents Under Offer, and the Great Interior Design Show. They all had either new talent or no talent, and it was the idea and the approach that was right. So I think some things will work because you've got great talent that you're bringing in, and some things will work because you just... House That 100K Built, it felt timely. Can you build a house for £100,000? The proposition's all there. You don't need to worry about the talent.
But how does the talent... How does talent affect the ratings? And are you looking to grow those extra ones? So, for example, would you do, if Baz is a success in this format, would you look to put them in something else? You know, in the way that old features kind of presenters were quite often. You take an Anna Richardson, you know, and they go into a sort of a different type of show. Are you looking to grow
talent
those
can
ways?
really help a channel create brands and channel, and if you have talent that people associate with your channel, then that's very, very helpful. So, yeah, and I think we all try to grow talent. And if you look at, I mean, funnily enough, you look at what you consider talent now, on a lot of these channels, they weren't talent when they started out. They were completely newcomers. So I think features, or the 8 o'clock start, is a really important place for finding and growing new talent.
But
and then they become, like Heston Blumenthal, you know, was a chef that none of us had heard of, and now he's...
Gentleman there, I'm slightly worried his arm is going to fall off.
You don't want to overexpose talent.
Keeps it out at that angle for much longer. Who are you and where are you from? No, don't make a salute. Bloody hell.
I'm Malcolm Neam. I'm from CB Films. I love the clip with the gardener.
Hello,
gardener.
Malcolm, how are you?
I'm very good.
Good.
Get out of the room.
This is how we now deal with independent suppliers, Simon.
Yes,
We're very nice
exactly,
to them.
Simon.
Yeah.
It's all loving. But I wanted to ask about peer-to-peer. You've mentioned that a lot in the press, and it seems to be the sort of buzz phrase for features at Channel 4. Can you explain a bit more about what that is exactly?
Of course. I mean, so take, for example, OCC Cleaners. You're looking at a format that's worked incredibly well for us. And again, it's about evolution. How Clean Is Your House was the perfect iteration of it back in the day. Absolutely was. I loved that show. And now OCC Cleaners is the evolution of that territory. And it comes in a way where you're looking at a world that's extremely interesting, but you're still getting all of that takeout. I will buy any bleach that Hayley uses. I will clean my toilet in the way that woman does, because she's the best at it. So if you're looking at that again with the autistic gardener, it's just the idea that it isn't a presenter down the lens telling you how it should be done. It is one of your peers giving you an example of how they do it and showing you different ways into it, which also gives you extra content because you're learning about them and their lives at the same time. That's my interpretation of it. I won't speak for everyone.
So it sounds like we might have reached a consensus. Fun, takeout, but authentic journeys. Kind of a genre, features seems to be going through a sort of a genre mash moment. And therefore it's entirely inevitable that some shows are going to be big winners and others are going to be losers during that evolutionary period. But the overall message is it's a creative time rather than a time for anxiety and fear about ratings and lack of performance. So it's down to you guys, I guess, to help these guys define their channels. Thank you very, very much to Celia, Emma, Jill, Katie and Alison for being so open and honest and such good fun so early in the morning. Please give them a round of applause.